In 30 years of carrying a county badge, I learned something that no manual ever taught me. Houses aren't just wood and plaster. They hold on to things, memories, arguments, regrets, and sometimes they hold on to the last moments of a life. I've seen a lot in this job. Deputies vanish from a running patrol car, coffee still warm on the dashboard. A family of 7, 3 generations, dead at the exact same second. No wounds, no poison, no explanation. A man whose body was still breathing but whose soul had been beaten right out of him by a mob. A living ghost, walking, talking, empty. And I've seen what happens when you insult the dead. A careless word over a grave. A joke at a funeral. A bulldozer scraping up a forgotten cemetery. The dead don't forget. They don't forgive. And they have all the time in the world to wait. But this case was different. No violence. No crime scene. Just a widow. A bed. And a fall that happened every single night. Margaret Holloway was 73 years old. She lived alone in a small house on the outskirts of Oak Haven, Indiana. Every morning, she woke up on the floor next to her bed. Not beside it, not near it, on the floor, curled up, as if someone had picked her up and placed her there while she slept. She told her daughter it had been happening for months. She felt a cold hand on her back every night. It would push her, gently at first, then harder, until she rolled off the mattress and hit the floor. Her daughter didn't believe her. She thought it was sleepwalking. Old age, dementia. She bought her mother a bed rail. Margaret fell off anyway. A lower bed frame. Still ended up on the floor, a different bedroom. It didn't matter. Every morning, Margaret woke up on the floor. She tried sleeping on the couch, still woke up on the floor. She stopped sleeping altogether. She sat by the window trying to stay awake. But exhaustion always won. And every time she closed her eyes, she woke up on the floor. Her daughter finally called the county. She wanted a welfare check. That's when I got the file. I drove out to Oak Haven on a Tuesday afternoon. The house was small. White clapboard, green porch, well-maintained. Margaret met me at the door. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired from a bad night's sleep. The kind from months of not sleeping. She invited me in, made tea, sat across from me and said, "You think I'm crazy, don't you? Everyone does." I told her I didn't think anything yet. I was just there to listen. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something I'll never forget. "It's not me, Mr. Frank. It's the bed. The bed doesn't want me in it." I asked her what she meant. The man who owned this house before me. He died in that bed. He was paralyzed from the waist down. Couldn't move his legs. He spent his last years in that bed. He couldn't get out. He couldn't even roll over without help. He died alone. Right there, in that bed. And I think he's still there. He's trying to make room for himself. Every night he pushes me out. He wants the bed back. He never got to leave it, Mr. Frank, and he doesn't want me to leave it either. I asked her how she knew about the previous owner. The neighbors told her. His name was Arthur Winthrop, a farmer, quiet, private. He lived alone after his wife passed. No children, no visitors, no one to help him. When he fell ill, when he couldn't move anymore, he lay in that bed, alone, for days, maybe weeks. The neighbors stopped seeing him at the mailbox, stopped seeing his light on at night. The postman called the sheriff. They broke down the door, found him on the floor, next to the bed. He had fallen out, couldn't get back in. He died there on the floor, reaching up toward the mattress. Margaret didn't know that part. When I told her, she went pale. "That's why he pushes me out," she said. "He's not trying to get rid of me. He's trying to get back in. He wants to be in the bed, but he can't get in on his own. So he pushes me out. Then he tries to pull himself up, but he can't. So he waits until I fall asleep again, and he tries again, every night. He's been trying for 40 years. I sat there in her living room. The tea had gone cold, the clock ticked, and I realized something. Margaret wasn't crazy. She was terrified. She was living in a house where a dead man was still trying to get back into his bed, and she was the only thing in his way. I left Margaret's house with more questions than answers. I drove into Oak Haven and found the county records office. I pulled Arthur Winthrop's file. It was thin. Birth certificate, marriage license, death certificate, nothing unusual. But I noticed something on the death certificate. The cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest. But there was a note in the margin, written in pen by a different hand. Patient found on floor, bedside, unable to rise. Dehydration, malnutrition, possible neglect. I read that line again. Neglect. Who neglects a paralyzed man? He had no family, no visitors, no one to check on him. He was forgotten. That word stuck with me. Forgotten. I decided to talk to the neighbors. I started with Eleanor Briggs. She was 94 years old, sharp as a tack, and had lived on that street since 1945. She remembered Arthur well. He was a quiet man, she said. His wife died young, cancer. He was never the same after. Kept to himself, worked his farm, sat on that porch, never bothered anyone. I asked her about his illness. He fell, out in the field. His tractor flipped, crushed his legs. He was in the hospital for months. They said he would never walk again. He had no one to take care of him, no children, no family, so he came home. He tried to manage on his own, but he couldn't. He couldn't cook. He couldn't clean. He couldn't even get out of bed to use the bathroom. I used to bring him food, leave it on the porch. He never let me inside. He was embarrassed, proud man. Didn't want anyone to see him like that. Eleanor paused. She looked at me with tired old eyes. I should have done more. I should have called someone. But he asked me not to. He said he'd be fine. He said he just needed time. And then one day, I stopped seeing his light on at night. I knocked. No answer. I left food on the porch. It stayed there for 3 days. That's when I called the sheriff. They broke down the door. They found him on the floor. She stopped talking. I could see her holding back tears. He was so small when I saw him. He had always been a big man, but he was so small. He looked like a child. I never forgave myself. I asked Eleanor about the bed. She looked confused. I told her about Margaret, about the falling, about the hand on her back. Eleanor went pale. That bed was his. His wife bought it for him. It was the first piece of furniture they ever owned together. He refused to leave it. He said he'd die in that bed. She looked at me. Do you think he's still there? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. I went back to Margaret's house that evening. She was sitting in her armchair just like before. She looked at me and said, "You're coming back tonight, aren't you? You want to see it?" I nodded. She said, "I'll make coffee. You're going to need it." I arrived at 9 p.m. Oak Haven was quiet, the kind of quiet that settles over small towns after dark, when the streets are empty and the only sound is the wind through the trees. Margaret opened the door before I could knock. She had been watching for me. She looked smaller than she had earlier. The darkness had shrunk her. "I knew you'd come back," she said. "I knew you had to see for yourself." I followed her inside. The house felt different at night. The walls seemed closer, the ceiling lower, the shadows deeper. I could feel the house breathing. Margaret led me to the bedroom. It was small. A single window faced the backyard. The bed was against the wall, made up neatly with a floral quilt. Old bed. Worn wooden frame, high mattress. The kind of bed from another era. Margaret sat down on the edge. I'm going to try to sleep now. You can sit in that chair. Just watch. Don't try to stop it. I've tried. It doesn't help. She lay down, pulled the quilt up to her chin, closed her eyes. I sat by the window. The clock read 9:47 p.m. I watched her breathe, slow, steady. She was asleep within minutes. Her body gave in to exhaustion quickly. The first hour was quiet. The house settled. Floorboards creaked. Wind rattled the window. Nothing unusual. I started to think maybe it was just her imagination. Maybe she was sleepwalking, rolling out of bed. Then the clock hit 11:15 p.m. The room changed. The air got heavier. The temperature dropped. I could see my own breath forming in front of my face. And then I heard it. A sound. Soft at first, barely audible. It came from the direction of the bed. I leaned forward. A scraping sound. Like something heavy being dragged across the floor. Like a body being pulled. I looked at Margaret. She was still asleep, but her body was moving. Slowly. Her legs shifting. Her hips tilting. She was being pushed. I stood up, walked closer. I watched as her body slid across the mattress, inch by inch, toward the edge. No one touching her. Nothing visible, but I could see the quilt pulling tight. The indent in the mattress where something was pressing down. Then I felt it. A cold. Not just a draft. A concentrated cold. Like a hand. A large hand. Pushing against Margaret's back. Her body rolled to the edge. She fell, hit the floor with a thud. She didn't wake up, stayed on the floor, curled up, exactly as she had described. I walked over, knelt down, touched her shoulder. She was cold, not from the floor, from the force that had pushed her. I looked at the bed. The mattress was still indented, the shape of a body pressed into the quilting, a large body. A man's body. Then I heard it again, the scraping, this time from the floor, from under the bed. I looked down. 2 hands, pale, thin, fingers stretching out from under the bed, gripping the floorboards, pulling, trying to drag something, trying to drag itself. The fingernails scraped the wood. The hands reached the edge of the bed, reached up, tried to grab the mattress. They couldn't reach. Too weak, too tired. Then they vanished. Gone. I stood there in the dark, heart pounding. I looked at Margaret, still asleep, still on the floor. I looked at the bed. The indent was gone. The room was warm again. I sat back in the chair. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I watched the bed, the floor, Margaret. Nothing else happened. At 7 a.m., Margaret woke up. She looked at me. You saw it, didn't you? I nodded. I told you, he's still here. He wants his bed back. I left Margaret's house that morning with my mind racing. I had seen things I couldn't explain. Hands reaching out from under a bed. A body being pushed across a mattress by nothing visible. A cold so concentrated it felt like a hand pressing against my own skin. I went back to the county records office, pulled Arthur Winthrop's file again, read every page. Then I found something I had missed, a separate document tucked into the back of the folder. A letter, written by Arthur Winthrop himself, dated 2 months before he died. The handwriting was shaky, the words hard to read, but I managed to make them out. Dear whoever finds this, I've been in this bed for 6 months now. I can't move, I can't eat, I can't even use the bathroom on my own. I have no one. No one comes to see me. No one checks on me. I'm stuck here in this bed and I cannot get out. I pray every night that I will die in my sleep, but I don't. I wake up every morning still here, Still trapped, still alone. I have decided to end my life. I will stop drinking water. I will stop eating. I will let myself fade away. But I am afraid. I am afraid of what happens after. I am afraid of being trapped forever. I am afraid of this bed. This bed is my prison. Please, if anyone reads this, do not let me stay in this bed. Take me out of it. Bury me in the ground. Let me rest. Do not leave me in this bed. I read the letter 3 times. My hands were shaking. He had died trying to escape. He had fallen out of bed, crawled across the floor, died reaching for the door, and now, 40 years later, he was still trying. Margaret wasn't being pushed out. She was being pulled. Arthur was trying to get out. He was trying to escape. He didn't want to be in the bed. He wanted to leave it. He wanted someone to help him. Every night he tried again, grabbed the floorboards, dragged himself across the room, reached for the door. But he always failed. He was trapped, not in the bed, in the house. He could never leave. He would never leave. I drove back to Margaret's house. She opened the door. "You found something," she said. I nodded. I showed her the letter, read it to her. She listened in silence. When I finished, she sat down in her chair, tears in her eyes. "He wasn't trying to get back in the bed," she said. "He was trying to get out." I nodded. "He's been trapped in that room for 40 years. He's been trying to leave, but he can't. He's stuck. He doesn't want to hurt you. He just wants someone to help him. He wants someone to let him go." Margaret looked at me. "What do I do?" I told her the truth. "You have to leave this house. You have to let him have the room. He can't leave until someone leaves first. He's been trying to escape for 40 years. You are his way out. When you leave, he leaves with you. The room empties. The bed empties. And he can finally rest." Margaret nodded slowly. "I'll move out tomorrow. I'll stay with my daughter. I'll never come back here." She stood up. She hugged me. "Thank you, Mr. Frank. I finally understand. He wasn't hurting me. He was trying to get my attention. He wanted me to help him." I nodded. I didn't say anything, because I couldn't tell her the rest. I couldn't tell her that Arthur Winthrop would never leave that house. He would always be there, in the room, in the bed, in the floor. He was trapped by his own loneliness. He had been alone for so long that he had become part of the house. The house absorbed him. The house kept him. The house wouldn't let him go. Margaret could leave, but Arthur could not. He would spend eternity trying to escape, reaching for the floor, dragging himself across the room, trying to get out, never succeeding, forever trapped in the bed that wouldn't hold him. But Margaret didn't need to know that. Margaret moved out 3 days later. Her daughter came with a truck. They packed her clothes, her dishes, her photographs. They left the furniture. They left the bed. Margaret said it felt wrong to take it. It belonged to someone else, someone who needed it more than she did. I helped her load the last box. She stood on the porch looking back at the house. The sun was setting. The windows were dark. The house looked empty. But I knew it wasn't empty. Something was still inside. She walked down the steps and hugged me. "Thank you for listening to me. Everyone else thought I was crazy, but you listened. You believed. You helped me understand." I told her she didn't need to thank me. I was just doing my job. She smiled, the first time I had seen her smile. "I'll sleep tonight. For the first time in months, I'll sleep." She got in the truck. Her daughter waved. They drove away. I stood there alone, watching them disappear. The sun was almost gone. The street was quiet. I don't know why I went back inside. Maybe I wanted to see if the house felt different. Maybe I wanted to see if Arthur could finally rest. I walked up the porch steps. The door was unlocked. I went inside. The house was empty. The furniture still there, the bed still in the bedroom. I walked down the hallway. The floorboards creaked. I opened the bedroom door. The room was dark. The bed was made, the quilt smooth, the pillows fluffed, sterile, empty, waiting. I stood in the doorway. I didn't feel the cold, didn't feel the pressure, didn't hear the scraping. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like something is holding its breath. I walked to the bed, sat down on the edge. The mattress dipped, the springs creaked. I looked at the floor. The wooden planks were worn, scratched. Long grooves in the wood, fingernail marks, deep ones, from 40 years ago. From a man trying to drag himself across the room. From a man trying to escape. I reached down, touched the floor. The wood was cold, colder than it should have been. I felt it. A faint pressure against my palm, like a hand pressing up from underneath. I pulled my hand back. I stood up. I walked to the door. I turned around. I looked at the bed one last time. The quilt was moving, just slightly, like something shifting underneath it, like someone trying to get comfortable, like someone trying to get out. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I left the room, left the house. Drove away, never went back. But I thought about Arthur Winthrop a lot in the months that followed. His letter, his loneliness, his fear of being trapped forever. I realized something. Arthur wasn't trapped by the bed. He wasn't trapped by the house. He was trapped by his own loneliness. He had been alone for so long that he didn't know how to leave. He had become part of the house. When he died, he couldn't let go. He couldn't move on, because he had no one to move on with, no one to say goodbye to, no one to remember him. He was just a forgotten man in a forgotten house on a forgotten street. That was his real tragedy. Margaret moved on. She sleeps soundly now. She told me she never fell out of bed again. But I often wonder about Arthur, if he's still there, if he's still trying to escape, if he's still dragging himself across the floor, if he will ever rest. I don't have an answer. I don't think I'll ever know. I do know one thing, though. When I sit in my chair at night, when the house is quiet and the wind is still, I think about him. How easy it is to be forgotten. How easy it is to be alone. How easy it is to become trapped in your own life. I make sure to check on my neighbors, to wave to the man across the street, to say hello to the woman at the end of the block. Because I never want to be like Arthur. I never want to be so alone that I become part of the house. I never want to be trapped. I never want to be forgotten. I close the file on Margaret Holloway. Case closed. But I keep Arthur Winthrop's letter in my desk drawer. I read it sometimes, when I'm feeling lonely, when I'm feeling trapped. I read it and remind myself that there are worse things than death. There is being forgotten. There is being alone. There is being trapped in a room with no one to help you out. Arthur Winthrop had all of those things, and he still has them. 40 years later, he's still trapped. He's still trying to get out. He's still waiting for someone to help him. But no one ever comes, and no one ever will.